desert sun and the coastal glow.
Welcome to Real Siblings, It Ain't Easy, a real estate podcast with the goal to educate, inform, and save their listeners time as they navigate the market and properties in their neighborhoods. Get ready to join real-life siblings and professional real estate advisors, Donna Reed and Eric Seemann, as they discuss how it may be simple, but it ain't always easy.
All right, let's go. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Eric. She's Donna. We're the Real Siblings, your hosts for this unconventional real estate and lifestyle podcast. In every episode, we blend those two things, lifestyle together with real estate, in order to communicate, educate, connect, and entertain our listeners. The topics always vary. Conversations go in a lot of directions. We endeavor to provide our listeners with insights into our industry, and in this case, our territories where we work, regions, better equipping them for your or their next real estate transaction. So, again, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoy what you hear and choose to join our growing community. As we segue to tossing to my co-host, we finished or just did episode 80 a couple of weeks ago. Episode 80 was a Markets on the 8, and in that we talked a lot of numbers. Yeah. Numbers which Donna accused me of it. My brother who thinks we need to talk about the numbers. Well, guess what? It must have triggered something in her head because she came back to me and said, hey, we need to look at these, drum roll please, numbers.
Numbers. But mine are more fun. Mine's history.
Fun with numbers. This is, I think I remember Mr. Schieffer talking about that. Maybe one of my other math teachers or our other math teachers. What are we doing today?
Shout out to our high school teachers for math and science that Donna didn't want to continue. So I was telling Eric after the last one, he's really good with coming up with the topics. I want you to know. I asked if we could do something, nice, Eric, related to where we live now and the indigenous people that lived here and the percentages of our population and how that has evolved over the years and how that affects what our houses look like, what we built, the style of them, the ones that are older, frankly, temperatures, how people survived, water, all of that. And it's funny, I'm looking behind us. Eric has a plant behind him that he calls, what'd you say, a summer holly?
It is officially called agarita, but I call it a hill country holly. Yeah. Because if you look at the leaves.
Yeah, spiky.
Very sharp, very pointy, very similar to what a holly bush would be. It is now springtime. We are mostly past cedar season. It has been a long, grueling cedar season. Yeah. Pictured in the previous episode on the video. Yeah. This is the agarita flowers in bloom. They turn into a berry. You can actually harvest these and turn them into jelly. But it makes a blueberry look big. It might even make a pea look big. The size of these berries ends up being very, very small.
You got to pick a lot of them.
So harvesting is a challenge. And these are not forgiving plants. Every single time you reach down, they are spiky. So that's mine. And then you have and an archaeological dig behind you.
Yes. Yeah. When Eric and I were just getting started, I got up to turn the light off and he said, I looked like I was walking into the dig, here. But I'm looking at it thinking there's nothing about this picture that speaks of water. And yet when I was looking up numbers, I was checking out to see who were the first people that lived here in the Tucson area in Southern Arizona. And they were the Hohokam people, and they were here from 300 to 1450 CE. Tell me what that stands for because I can't remember.
Common Era.
Common Era. So before we started with where we're at 2026, the Hohokam were here, and their descendants are the Tohono O'odham tribe, which, by the way, is literally, there's a park, Tohono Chul, which stands for Desert Corner, like a mile from my house. And then Santa Vieira del Bac, which is one of the oldest churches that we have. Eric, I can't remember. Have you been there with me? It's on the reservation, a little bit south of town.
Oh, maybe we did, but I don't think we went in. It's refinished entirely white, really bright white.
It is refinished. It's called the Dove of the Desert.
Yes, yes, we have been there. But it's still in
operation. Yeah, yeah.
But for whatever was going on, we chose not to go inside because there was kind of
a lot of
extensive
people or
lineup.
something going on. And that is in an area that was farmed by the Hohokam people like 4,000 years ago, which brings me back to looking at the picture behind me. And I have said this as people who grew up in farm country south of Lake Erie with really good soil, knowing that it was rich, the Black Swamp. When I first moved here, I thought, what do you mean they grow stuff? Like what do they grow? What do they eat? And the fact that this was an agricultural region is kind of amazing to me.
So Donna, do you know, is the picture behind you, and it is looks to be about a 2 foot to 3 foot stacked wall of native stone with mud in between.
That is correct. And
was that a cistern?
This was probably a residence. This is
okay.
You can kind of see now if I lean the wall, it looks like it has something sticking out a little bit. This is in Catalina State Park, Eric, which is just up the road. And it's near the Romero ruins. So when people go hiking, they hike up to the top and there's Romero Falls. You got to be a good hiker. Gets steep. The kids did it when they were younger and stuff. And there's waterfalls.
I was going to say, you get rewarded for going through the heat and the dry by being able to get wet in order to survive coming back down to your car.
Right. So you and I, we talked about in our 6-7 episode and some of those about wants versus needs. And I thought, look how people lived. Do we really appreciate what we have? And just before we started recording, I was trying to check back and see what the average summer temperature was here and the rainfall. I didn't get to it, but we know that, this month for us here in February, this is usually when it might freeze. And we've had 88 and 90 degrees. Now, today was only getting into the mid 60s. But that does not bode well for summer, and it freaks me out. You already talked about your lack of water. What did you tell me before we started recording?
Well, we're anticipating rain for the next 2 days, but we are down for the year. We ended up 2025 down for the year, and we have been down over 4 years in a drought, with every single year falling further and further behind. The lake that is nearest to me, which is a irrigation lake. There are two different types of lakes. There's Corps of Engineer lakes, which are more recreational, designed for water control and flow down river. Ours was specifically built for irrigation in some of the fields to the south and west of even where I'm at. And they can draw from the lake anytime they want. That lake is currently somewhere between 2 to 3% full.
Wow. Like walk across.
97% down. There are streams that are not streams. There are dry streams that are or intermittent streams, which haven't had water in them for years.
Wow.
And even if we get the rain, it's going to soak in so fast.
Yeah. So in Tucson, the Hohokam were the ones that started. And then the Yaqui Indians, which when I worked at the University of Arizona, one of our top bakers was a Yaqui man. And it's what I remember being a family of bald brothers, and I have very thin hair. Native Americans tend to have thick, long hair. And I remember his name was Albert. He took off his hair protector thing that he was wearing, and he went like this. He, lifting his hair up, and he pulled 2 feet of hair out of the back of his shirt. And that to me, again, just differences in who we are, where we grew, how we were, we were raised. So the Yaquis came from Sonora, and there's Sonora, Mexico, and we live in the Sonoran Desert. We had Apache tribes here. There's more of those up north in the state, and they tend to have been a more nomadic group of people. And then the Pima Indians, and I live in Pima County, were along the Gila River. And years ago, when I first came here and Gil and I were first married, we went tubing down the Gila River.
All right. And Gila River is spelled with a G, correct?
Yeah, G, like the Gila Monsters, G-I-L-A.
So it's really right. The Gila River. For those of us who came in and don't know how to pronounce those kind of silent letters.
Yeah. And you and I, again, we were talking about that now that I've been here a while, I am used to some of these words. But back in Ohio, there was Sandusky, which was the tribe, and what we talked about, Seneca County.
And the Ottawa Indians in Seneca County, and yes, named for the native tribes that were up there.
Right.
And where San Antonio sits in what we pronounce as Bexar County or Bexar, Bexar, is the Alamo was originally San Antonio de Bexar.
I didn't know that.
Is part of the full name of what Mission San Antonio, or Mission that became known as the Alamo.
So if I looked up Bexar County, I was going to spell it Bear. Is that not how you spell it?
That is not how it's spelled. It has an X in there, but we have anglicized it. And I'll segue us into some of the questions we had about population and where we're at right now.
Yeah.
The irony of that is that San Antonio as a whole is still predominantly Hispanic and Latino, to the point of it being 61%. And I said San Antonio, but I'll say Bexar County.
Yeah.
Because whites, non-Hispanics, because we have to clarify that when we check the box, right? Just to make sure we don't look at our skin and go, oh, no, this is what I am.
Right.
25.9%. So between those two races, that is 87% of the population blend identify as either one of those two. So the fact that we have yielded, or pronunciations have yielded to us Westerners, European Americans, in pronunciation, is kind of ironic, considering that we're not the dominant population.
No, and I remember when you first moved there, nearly
34 years ago. My 34th anniversary is coming up.
And that there was the German restaurants in the air. I was like, what do you mean German? And I was because I had spent time enough with people in Texas. And, at that stage at age 18, I don't know how much attention I was paying to anything, but, to think that there was this whole, the Bernie is a German word, right?
Or green, which is grün.
Grün. Yeah. So our percentages here, I looked it up, and 3% of our population identify in their when they check the boxes as Native American, but 42% them are typically some mix. So that would be indigenous, Spanish, which it was Father Kino that came here during the Spanish-American War, and then Mexican American, and then we're American cultural now, which I just thought was interesting verbiage. But that's been over 300 years that those numbers have changed tremendously. Because in 1950, this amazes me, because I think it was in the 40s when Gil's grandpa and grandma moved here from Kansas, and they came here for drier weather because of their one daughter's lungs, right? They needed to get out of the humidity of the Midwest. So 90% of the people living here at that time were white. That kind of shocked me, and now that is 55 to 65%. So I know that, honestly, I'm in the minority. I know it. And I would say that during the season when our population doubles, which is winter, or it used to anyway, that number increases. We are a greater percentage. Now,
you said you're at the minority, but the number you just gave still shows that the majority of the population is white. It went from 90% down to 60%.
I was doing the difference between Pima County and all of Southern Arizona. So in all of Southern Arizona, where we then do have the reservations, we go down to the border and everything like that, I'm in the minority. In maybe the Tucson circle, I might be 5%, above. And I can tell that in my church, because our church is, somebody said to me, is your church very diverse? And I'm like, not so much. It's changing. It is, with the generations, but very, very different. And in all of Southern Arizona, so I had said that we were about 3% identified as Native American in the Tucson circle. But in all of Southern Arizona, where it's more like 1.4 to 1.6 million, 5 to 7% are Native American. And that makes sense to me, because that encompasses a few more of the reservations and several counties. So do you have the Mexican heritage. Is that, just based on your border and the Rio Grande River and everything?
Yes. And the Spanish missionaries, when they came here to this part, were spreading Catholicism. So Catholic
Yeah,
schools,
same
the
here.
missions that were sent up, and the Alamo is one of 5 of those missions. There is also Mission San Jose, Mission San Juan, Mission Espada, and naturally, since I'm naming them all off, I'm going to forget one.
All in the San Antonio
All
area?
in San Antonio area. They are the only World Heritage site identified in the state of Texas, with the Alamo
Wow.
being the one that was furthest north on the San Antonio River, and then they proceed down from there. It was not the biggest. Mission San Jose is the biggest and the one that is still mostly restored. 3 of the 4 remaining missions actually have working churches still, but they were there, and the main people that they were being missionaries to were Native Americans. And then we were settled by Germans. We were settled by Poles. To the west, south and west of us, it was Alsatians, a variety of different European cultures that came in here. And considering all of that, the fact that we are still only 26% is, we used to be more balanced. And I say we used to because I know when I first got here, it's like, oh, it's probably about the same amount percentage Hispanic to white, and then everything else. And that everything else now, as you look at it, is only 3.7%.
And that would be African Americans?
No, that's not African American. Okay. So African American is 9.1%. Okay. So between Hispanic, Latino, then white, then Black African American, that leaves you at 96.3%. So there's 3.7% that are Native, Indigenous, Asian Pacific Islanders. Yeah. Anywhere else in the world that would be identified as.
Interesting. And so to go back to Lindsey, I said, I think I still talk about it as if I'm there. It was settled by 9 German brothers. Maybe it was 8, maybe it was 10. I don't know. All I know is that it was predominantly German, right? And when you and I have interviewed and talked to the people back where we grew up, we have commented that some of them have 150 years of family. And Shelley, who is one of our ongoing listeners who gives us feedback and asks questions, doesn't live there anymore. She lives in California, but has a tremendous history. It's very, very different. And yet farmers, we had migrant workers who stayed. And it'd be interesting to know what the census shows for Sandusky County and those counties around there now, and what that is. But I don't remember growing up ever thinking a lot about the Native Americans. Do you remember, like in Ohio history or any of our?
No, there was a little bit, but it was typical world U.S. history stuff. It was the French and Indian War. Yeah. And then from there, Revolutionary War, War of 1812, who was siding with who. It was not
Civil War,
something that we spent a lot of time on.
No. So I want to go back because this just struck me talking about our populations. You and Jeannie have been going to a church that is not African American, but is represented by 37 countries.
No, and actually the new number now is 51 countries. After the year-end Thanksgiving, people who came in and celebrated their nation country of origin. And the number went up to 51. And you say it's not African American.
Predominantly Africans.
Yes.
Often first and second generation here.
Yeah. Many.
Yeah.
And there's been some interesting conversations recently, being there for 14, 15 months now, conversations start to change, deepen a little bit, things that you talk about. Yeah. It's interesting. It's enlightening, even to the fact where there are people who have been in here, multi-generations, who are part of the church. And they expect everybody to identify with their heritage of history of being brought here as slaves. And they're going, that's not my world. I can't identify with that.
That's
That's not so
yeah.
where they expect that natural sisterhood, brotherhood,
Whatever.
we're going to get together. This
Yeah.
is all. It's not, because that's not the experience.
Yeah. Well, and you had said that you and Jeannie attended a Nigerian wedding.
Yes.
Is that right? You know, and so I was thinking about it from the what boxes we check when we fill out, you know, our paperwork to vote or whatever we do. And it makes me wonder if there's an other box that people are checking, and if that comes up in that number of 3%.
There has to be. I know there is a portion of the population that is less than 1% that is considered to be Asian Pacific Islander. Yeah. Which is, I think, the way it is. The last time I saw something on a checkbox.
Same here.
I mean, I haven't had to fill out anything new like that because we've been in our house for 24 years. We've been here in the county. I haven't had to check those boxes in a long time. But, you know, one of the other things that had come up on all of this is we talked, because back in episode 80 again, it was a discussion about how your population fluctuates. So I specifically went in and said, okay, let's look at Bexar County. Let's look at San Antonio. And in that episode, because I went back and listened to it quick, I said 80 to 85% is probably of San Antonio comprises Bexar County. The actual number is a little bit lower than that. They said it was closer to around 75%, 25%, because there's more little suburbs that I wasn't thinking about that have been enveloped. But we're approaching 2.2 million. But I asked specifically, I checked specifically, do we have a migratory population like snowbirds? And it came back and said Texas, and specifically our area of the state, doesn't experience that as Arizona and Southern Florida do. Because you used the term in previous episodes, and again, as we were talking about this, as what our feeder cities are or states. And the answer is none, because we're so stable. People come here and stay permanently. It's permanent growth. It's not on and off. Transient, migratory. What's the?
Yeah. When you were active duty Army, were you a registered voter in Ohio still?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm assuming then that after your time and stuff overseas, that then you didn't change your state and until you moved to Texas, because you've been in Texas.
And that really was not that long a gap. So when you're in the military, you have what's identified as your home of record. For most people, that is where they spent the majority of their growing up years, because PCS, TDY, you're moving and moving and moving. Rich is finishing up. We'll finish up with just 29 years. And he has pointed out the fact that he's had 11 PCSs, 14 distinct unit assignments while he was doing that.
Wow.
So in 28 years, he moved 11 times.
Don't you remember Dan or Jeremy saying Jeremy went to like 13 schools?
Yes.
Or something. Like, whereas Christy and TJ were in the same school.
They got to go and graduate from one. So when you have that home of record, as soon as I got discharged, within 3 weeks of my discharge date back in 1992, I was at a job conference in Houston, and I did 12 interviews in 2 days. And of those 12 interviews, I had 2 offers. And one of them ultimately was going to end me working downtown Chicago with no holidays off. They identified that up front. At least they were fair to say you'll never have a holiday off. Or San Antonio. And having mom grown up in Chicago, having family in Chicago, knowing how much I don't like traffic, the idea of a commute, drive, anything into downtown Chicago, and I mean the heart of downtown, because this was going to be working for Greyhound buses.
That's where Jeremy and Bridget lived when they were there.
And if I was going to be in downtown, and I just didn't see myself in that position. Now, my first house in San Antonio was not out in the middle of the country as I am now.
Right.
But I remember when I first got here and I looked around going, why does everybody have a fence in their yard?
Oh, yeah.
That was so unusual to me, that everybody growing up in Lindsey who had a fence. Farmers had fences to protect their fields, but otherwise,
no, you ran across people's yards and
you were in the alleys, you ran through between houses like, oh man, I'm late. And it didn't matter where you were, you cut off and you and you ran home. So what are your feeder? You have that migratory population. Yeah.
Wait. I want to ask one more question based on me talking to you about the military, because San Antonio is the home to so many military bases. What do you think of those that come and go? How many of them vote in Texas, do you think? Because their population is going to be really diverse because our military is really diverse, right?
I think most of the military who's only here on a PCS, which is acronym wise, that's permanent change of station. That means the intention is you're going to be there for more than 12 months.
Yeah.
Or if you go into a combat situation, if you go to school, if you go to some sort of additional training, that's called TDY or temporary duty. It is intended to be less. So if you PCS here, there are some people who commit enough and they vote.
They change.
Because this is where I'm at. This is where I'm going to vote. I don't think that's a dominant portion of those personnel. Most of them still vote their home state, home of record.
Yeah. Okay.
However, the reason we are Military City USA is not just because of the number of military schools, installations, things like that we have. It is also related to the number of retirees that we have, because so many people came through here as we're the home of basic training, the home of pilot training for the United States Air Force. When you're training, everybody who's comes in as an enlisted comes through San Antonio, and everybody who's going to be a pilot navigator comes through San Antonio.
Right.
It gets a lot of exposure and they come back. I use as an example when I teach and when I talk to people about a residential rental, because I do more rentals than you do. Let's bring the real estate into this.
Yeah.
Residential rentals are not like an apartment building where you have one management company managing 20, 40, 60, 80, 100 units, planned vacancies and everything else. And everybody has to have the same policies. This is quiet time. This is what you can do. You can't do these things on your deck. When you get into a residential rental, you may have one owner with one property and they get to make the decisions. They make the decision on who they're accepting. They make their decision on what they want and what they expect at the house. There are houses here where the tenant is expected to water the lawns, maintain the lawns, take care of the bushes, do that sort of things. And then there's others where I spent too much money on getting the landscaping to where it is. I will pay for a landscaper to come out and take care of this. I don't want you to.
Yeah.
But tenants can be really, really crazy. I took new client out last night. One of the two units we looked at was tenant occupied. So he had to give us permission. The tenant had to give us permission. We open the door, we walk in, and there is the barbecue grill sitting in the middle of the living room in this house.
It's funny because it's not my listing.
And there was a point where, yes, as soon as you walked in, there's enough residual when you have a smoker that the whole house smelled like smoke.
Yeah.
It smelled like there'd been a fire. When I opened one of the doors, it's like, well, it's probably a good thing it's inside, because wherever he was at and smoking was close enough to the house that there were smoke stains and char alongside the house as a tenant. So every single owner gets to make their decision, but there are a lot of military who plan to come back, who buy their house doing a final PCS, and then they're coming back here is where all of that leads me back to.
We get a little bit of that too.
So that they're coming, they're staying.
I'm not going to go because we don't have time to go long into the feeder cities, but I do find it ironic that we have a brother that wound up in the Chicago area, and that one of our number one feeder cities is Chicago. So not the whole state of Illinois, right? Because there's a lot of farmland, but Chicago, up near the lake, some of the a lot of the northern states, of course. And even Green Valley, which is south of town, gets tons. There's a lot of Alaska license plates, down there. So we can spend a little bit more on that, because that also became different during COVID, when people who were jammed in cities just wanted a little bit more space. Now, some of those people are going back to where they were from. But anyway,
So the final thing that I want to add is, in contrast to your migratory population, one of the things that I specifically asked is roughly 85 to 88% of the residents identify as being born in the United States, born in Texas.
In your state?
In Bexar County.
Wow.
That's why when I first moved here, you were called a damn Texan if you stayed. And they called you that because not only did you have the nerve to come here, but you took a Texan's job.
And you stayed. You took a step. That's funny. Funny. All right, everybody. As we close up this episode, I want to thank you for spending time with us today. And now, Eric, I'm going to say something. Let me see how you
I'm going to see if I edit that out or not. That's right. If I do, this whole section has to go.
Yeah. Well, normally you say we stroll down memory lane and we talk about where we grew up. We did that a little bit, but thanks for bearing with us as we talked through kind of where we live now and the people that started this world where we live. I struggle every day to understand how anybody could have seen this as farmland, and yet Pima cotton comes from Pima County. So it's some things I had to remember. We hope that we have communicated, entertained you a little bit, educated a little bit with you. And a reminder that I'm here in Arizona, Tucson, Southern Arizona. Eric's out in Texas in the San Antonio area. We are both realtors with Keller Williams, and we are here to help you find the perfect property for your family to call home, or to help you sell that home if it's time for you to go somewhere else. It's time to create new memories. We have an extensive network across the United States and around the world. And we'd be happy to help you find the perfect realtor for you wherever you might be coming or going. Remember, it may be simple, but it ain't always easy. And until next time, I am Donna.
And I am Eric.
And we are
Real Siblings.
We bring down home care to your big city keys, to Midwest hearts in the Southwest scene. We treat every house like it's our own hometown dream.
Hi, I'm Annabelle, and I want to thank you for investing your valuable time in listening to Real Sibling. It Ain't Easy. I hope you found this episode informative and enjoyable. There are several ways you can support this podcast with my Grandpa Eric and Aunt Grandma. Please take the time to like, follow, and subscribe. Additionally, leave them a 5-star rating along with a review on your preferred podcast platform. The final thing I would ask is that you recommend this podcast to a friend, a family member, or an associate. Your engagement is critical to their ongoing success, and they look forward to connecting. Check out the show notes Grandpa put together with their contact information, including emails, phone numbers, and website. And remember, the Real Siblings look forward to hearing from you.